2026 is well underway, which means that your email inbox and your social media feeds have likely been absolutely slammed with all the real estate agents that you know telling you that you have to buy a house with them, that now's the time to buy, now's the time to sell, so sign on the dotted line, I'm the one to work. I have to be the first person to admit that I know that's likely how I and many of my colleagues can come off. And that's one of my greatest fears, is coming off like a salesman. I work in sales. I get it. I sell homes. I help people sell homes. I help people buy homes. But I can't stand salespeople. I hate it when I see an unknown number on my phone and I pick it up and they're trying to sell me on something. I hang up the phone. I'll admit it. I hate it when I'm walking through the mall with my wife and kids and someone at a kiosk starts trying to sell me on something that I don't think that I need. I know how to spend my money, I like how I spend my money, and I don't need people pressuring me into spending it on stuff that I'm not sure whether or not I need. So today's video is all about trying to earn back a little bit of trust, and I think earning back trust starts with actually showing that there are two sides to the coin when it comes to purchasing a home. Certainly, there are a ton of benefits when it comes to home ownership. And I want to talk about those and lay out some rationale for why owning a home is actually a really good idea. But there's also a lot of benefits to renting and a lot of reason why it actually might be a wise idea for some people to rent instead of buy. Because ultimately, there's no reason you should work with me unless you can actually trust me and trust that I have your interests put up at the top. Yes, I want to sell homes. That's how I make my money. But it's also important that I take care of my clients, because the only way I get more clients is if you actually trust me. So let today's video be about trust and about actually talking through the pros and cons of owning and the pros and cons of renting so that you have all the information that you need and you know what's actually the best decision for you and your family. So let's talk about the pros and cons of owning a home and the pros and cons of staying a renter. First, let's start with the pros of owning a home. First off, we have the ability to build equity and to build a long-term financial asset. So most people end up getting a 15 to 30-year loan on their house. And while a lot of your payment on that loan does go to interest and to taxes and to insurance, there is a growing amount of those monthly payments that goes toward principal, which is money that you actually own that is in the asset, that is built in equity in the home, okay? So as you pay on that home over years and years and years, you slowly are starting to build more equity in that asset. So that eventually, whether you sell or whether you pass and you give that property on to a relative, there's actually an asset that's built that nobody owes money on, okay? And a big part of home ownership that's great is that not only are you starting to build into that asset with your principal payments, but a home is going to build equity over time in the way that it grows in value. So historically speaking, the value of real estate has gone up an average of about 4.4% every year since 1990. Now I go back to 1990 because there have been a lot of ebbs and flows in real estate. It's a cycle. It goes up a little bit, it might go down a little bit, but ultimately that value is climbing over time. So this includes the crash of 2008 and it includes the boom of the past 6 years, okay? So even looking at the highs and the lows, ultimately it's gone up an average of almost 4.5% per year. And that's great because if you own a home for 30 years, that home has really gone up in value over that time. So it's a really good investment of your money. So not only are you building principal as you pay into it, but you're building principal on something that's gaining value over time. Number two is that owning a home can create a lot of financial flexibility. And here's what I mean by that, is that when you sell your home, you actually can exclude up to $500,000 in capital gains taxes if you're filing as a married couple, or you can Set aside at least $250 if you're filing a single. There's a lot of different ways in which owning a home can create a tax shelter, and you can create a lot of different ways to do write-offs and end up saving yourself money in taxes. Mortgage interest is something you can usually write off. Property taxes can be written off. It's something definitely to talk to your financial advisor or your accountant about, but there's a lot of ways in which owning a home can create a ton of tax benefits. It's also important to know that if you've been paying into your home and you've built up a lot of equity in it, that using a home equity line of credit is one of the most popular ways in which homeowners can use their home to create extra cash for big projects or big purchases. In 2025, nearly 30% of homeowners took out a home equity line of credit to help pay for something else that they wanted or needed. So owning a home definitely does create a lot of financial flexibility that you wouldn't have otherwise. Last but not least, creative flexibility. Owning a home gives you so much more creative flexibility with your living space as compared to if you were renting somewhere. So chances are if you rent somewhere, there are a ton of rules from your landlord, from the rental company about what you can actually do with the inside of your home. Maybe they let you paint it or do really simple things like that, but there's a large chance that they don't let you change the layout of the inside. You're not going to be allowed to remove walls. You're not going to be allowed to change the siding on the house. You're not going to be allowed to do major renovations. Whereas if you own a home, you have that flexibility. You can make it cozy or the open space that you want. There's the flexibility to make it your space. Now, I must add the caveat that sometimes HOAs can have some rules that kind of tighten up what you can do, but for the most part, owning a home gives you true creative flexibility. So 3 reasons why owning a home is great. You can build equity, you have creative flexibility, you have financial flexibility. But now let's talk about the benefits of renting a home, because there are a lot of them, and a lot of them have to do with flexibility as well. So let's start with reason number 1 of why renting might be a better idea for you than purchasing a home. Number 1 is that renting does give you a lot more mobility and the flexibility to stay mobile with where you live. So renting provides you a lot more of the ability to really pick up and move where you want a lot easier and a lot faster than if you were owning a home. I typically recommend to homeowners that they stay in their home for at least 5 years so that they've had the chance to build up their principal payments and build up their equity before selling again. Fact of the matter is that when you sell a home, there are fees associated with that. And the first few years of paying on your mortgage payments, not a lot of that money's going to principal. So you need to pay on it for at least a few years in order to have enough equity to kind of balance out the fees that you pay while selling a home. If you buy a home and then you immediately sell it a year later, there's a really good chance you're gonna end up losing a little bit of money on that because of the fees that are associated and the lack of equity that you built up during that time, okay? Whereas if you're renting, you have your lease, and when your lease is up, you can get up and move. You don't have to worry about selling anything. You don't have to worry about marketing it. You don't have to worry about a lot of the fees associated with selling, with buying. You're able to stay mobile. And for some people, whether that be a traveling nurse, whether you're in the military, whether you're in any type of position where you move around a lot, or maybe you're just somebody who's trying to figure out what neighborhood you like, so you're trying out a few different ones, renting might be the way to go for you if you know that you're going to be moving every couple of years, because you're not necessarily going to have the time to make home ownership a way to build a financial asset unless you give it that 5, 6, 7 years at a time that you're in a home. So number 1 is that renting does give you a lot more mobility. Number 2 is that renting has a lot less upfront costs associated with it. So we've talked about this in other videos, but when you purchase a home, you're going to likely need at least 3% of the purchase price in cash for the down payment, and an additional 3% of the purchase price to cover your closing costs. So for a $300,000 house, that's going to be a minimum of 18 grand in cash you're likely going to need upfront in order to purchase this home. For a lot of people, that's a lot of cash to go ahead and cough up. Whereas if you're renting, you might have to pay that first and last month's rent, but maybe you want to have that 18 grand in cash set aside for a rainy day or for something else that you're saving up for, whether that be a trip or a new car or something really special that you want to do with your family. So there are a lot of upfront costs associated with purchasing a home, and you could save that money initially if you are renting. Quite possibly the number one reason why it might be a better idea to rent a home instead of purchasing a home is that owning a home involves so many maintenance fees that can really add up over the years and cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. And if you don't have excess liquid cash available for thousands of dollars in repairs and renovations every single year, whether your home is new or old, then it might not be a good idea to purchase a home. It's one of the most underrated things people just don't think about when it comes to owning a home is that every year there's going to be small and really large items that need to be fixed or replaced inside the home. So for example, sometimes it's going to be a really small item. So maybe you've got a leaky pipe downstairs and you have to pay a plumber $300. Then the next month you have to go ahead and get a couple outlets fixed. So an electrician gets paid $400. Those are small items. But then there's your larger items. Maybe your hot water tank goes out. That's going to be $2,500 to have a plumber come in and put in a new hot water tank. $2,500 is no small cost. That could more than double what you were paying in rent for the month. Or even worse, maybe you need a new roof. For a 2,000 square foot roof, average cost of a roof is going to be around $15,000. If you split that up across a year, that's over an extra $1,000 a month. So whether it's a new roof, a new furnace, a new hot water tank, maybe there's a larger issue with your plumbing. I know that when we moved into our first house, within the first 2 months, we figured out that there was a crack in one of the sewer lines, and we had to spend $15,000 right out the gate to get about 30 feet of plumbing line replaced, and they had to dig out about 10 feet of our basement floor. If you don't have excess cash put away for a rainy day fund to take care of those emergencies, it might not be a good idea to buy a home. It can get very expensive. Yes, buying a home is a great way to build a financial asset, but the only way that you can build that financial asset is if you take care of the asset in the first place, which you do by maintaining it. And maintaining a home costs a lot. So yes, I do believe that owning a home gives you the chance to build equity, gives you a lot of cool tax advantages to create financial flexibility, and gives you a lot of creative flexibility over your living space. But renting costs a lot less upfront. There's way less maintenance fees to worry about, and it gives you mobility that you otherwise might not have if you like to move around a lot. So just some things to think about. I want to show both sides of the coin. I want to earn your trust so that you trust me when it comes to helping you make a decision that's actually good for you and your family.